Welcome to the Canoga Park Youth Art Center's new series, Art Inspiration, where each class will look at the artworks of a different artist and be inspired by them to make our own artwork that has some of their elements and considerations. Today, the artist we're going to be looking at, her name is Gabriele Munter. Let's look at some of her paintings. Gabriele Munter is from Germany, and she was raised in a wealthy home. By the time she was 21, both of her parents had passed away and left her and her sister well off. So she was afforded privileges that other women at that time in history were not given. She could travel freely. She came to the United States and spent some time in Texas and Oklahoma, and she even was able to go to different art schools, which at the time was very difficult for women to be allowed into art school. She had a boyfriend who was a very famous painter named Wassila Kandinsky, and she learned from him a lot, and he from her as well, although he always got more recognition than she did, and in part that was because she was a woman and women artists weren't treated with the same respect and importance. It was very important to her to capture the essence of the moment. So she really wanted to learn how to paint fast, so that when you looked at her paintings, you could really sense that minute in time. Now let's take a look at some of her artworks. Now, I try to get pictures here that have different seasons, and look, we can see the wind blowing in this. Some of the things that she is known for are these black outlines. On one hand, they make the surface look flatter, like a cartoon, but on the other hand, they reduce the shapes of her landscapes into just shapes. So a tree is more of a shape than it really is a tree. And when we come down to this one, she also loved color, blues and greens in particular. And now look, we can see these mountains back here. Are they mountains? Are they clouds? We're not really sure. And she overlaps her landscapes. Look how high up that horizon line is. I really like that about her work, is she has if you put your horizon line this high, you create the illusion for far more space. Now if we look at this one, yes, it's winter, and I know that we don't have winter here, but winter paintings are really beautiful. You can see how she's got her trees with the bare branches. Again, a very high horizon line. One thing that's important to know with a winter painting is shadow on snow is blue. This is not blue snow. This is snow that's in the shadow. And look at her trees. She's reduced them just to triangles. So she really just focuses on the shapes of her landscape. We have another winter one here, and you can see these blue, this is like footprints or shadows in the way the snow fell. The bare trees and the very simple buildings, not so much black outline in this one. Now we can come down to this one. It's got a lot of fall colors going in it, doesn't it? So we've got these trees that just look like big shapes and overlap, 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 overlap. So she's creating this space by overlapping the different elements of her landscape. And then we come down to our last one here, and look at these clouds. They look like they're actual shapes, like solid shapes, not how we know clouds to be. You can tell her colors are super bright. She loves her blues and her greens. And look how she has reduced these buildings and these trees to just their basic shapes. So we love this artist. I love this artist. Let's take a look at what we're going to be doing today. Here is my line drawing of a Gabriele Munter inspired landscape. Notice how high my horizon line is. That's where the sky meets the land. It's almost at the top of the page. That way I have all this room to put in all my stuff. My clouds have been reduced to just shapes. Even my tree, shape, 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 like an upside down ice cream cone that's really long, I guess. Even my houses, very basic. And look at this overlapping. So we have the mountain line, then we have these other roll hills, then we have our water, and then we have another one here, and then this one overlaps that. My tree overlaps my house. This tree overlaps my house. Whenever you overlap something, you're creating three-dimensional space. So you can put that into your toolbox. Shall we start? All right. Now remember what I said about that horizon line. It's always the most important line you put in, but on Gabriele Munter's, it's really high. I'm going to give myself some mountains here. Remember, they're all different. Some are big, some are small. They're all different. Now I'm going to start some of that overlapping I was telling you about. Here's the first bit. Now this tells me that this land is flat and that land I have to start walking uphill to. If I wanted to, I can put some trees, the shapes of trees in here. Maybe a couple more on the other side. There we go. Now I'm going to put the line where this is the lake. So here's our line. So now we have mountains, hills. This is going to be our lake. So I'm going to have this hill come down here like this. This is the hill that's closest to us where the house is. And here's another hill. And so this hill is overlapping that hill. So now we have this is closest, then this, then this, then this, and that's the farthest away. Typically, almost always, the stuff that's highest on the paper is the farthest away from you. Things that are at the bottom of the paper are closest to you. Now, because I'm overlapping my house and I don't want to use an eraser today, I'm going to put in my big tree first. So here I have my big tree. And look, they're all blowing in the wind. So I'm just going to make a cypress tree. That's those tall trees blowing in the wind. There you go. And I'm going to put my little trunk down there. Now I'm going to build my houses. So my first house is over here. Now remember, when we do our drawings, you have to go back in and erase these lines where things went overlapped. Like we can still see our landscape through there. So here's my first house. And then I'm going to put my windows in here. But I want to put some plants. Every time you put plants around your buildings, it looks more realistic. Now this tree is in front of the house, so I'm going to show just a corner of the house here. Here's the other little bit. And then I come down here, and right there, and then that side comes down right here. There's a little bit of room between my houses. Let's put in another window here. And you know, if you put a frame around your window, little things like this, these little details, they really add something to your drawing. So think about putting a frame around your windows. Now I'm going to come over to this other side and we have these other houses. Now look, these houses are farther away, so they're smaller, aren't they? So again, I'm going to put my little trees in first. They're blowing in the wind, so I'm going to have them. And this tree's smaller because it's farther away. So here's one. Let's give him a little friend next to him here. I make the edges a little irregular for the branches. But remember, she was all about basic shapes. Now let's throw in our first house. Square, super easy, with a triangle on top of it. And I get a bit of little detail here on the roof. Put in my door, and I'm going to put a taller building right next to it. Maybe this one has 2 stories on it. Put a little frame around my roof. And then it comes down like this. I'm going to put some bushes around here. There's a door here, and look, I'm going to make a pathway coming out. But look what happens. It's skinny here, and it gets fatter as it comes closer to us. We'll put in some windows here. Remember, because it's farther away, it's smaller. Even the windows are smaller. Okay. Let's see. We can put another tree in if we wanted to. We can even put one down here. All these details, they're all up to you. This is your drawing. Have 1 house, 2 houses, 5 houses, a whole village. Here's your trees. You can put a swing set in there. You can put people playing. You can put animals going. So now this is a lake, and it might be hard to see that it's a lake because we're not using any color on this drawing. So I'm going to put a boat in here. And if I put a boat in here, I think people will know. I'm putting a sailboat because it's such a windy day. I think people will know that's a lake. And just in case they don't, I'm putting a couple of little lines in here to show texture, to show the waves. Oh, I forgot my clouds. So remember, my clouds are like actual shapes, like little wiggly worms. But you can make your clouds any shape you want. There we go. So there's my clouds. Have I forgotten anything? Well, a couple of bushes. I'm trying to have my bushes look like they're being blown in the wind too. Think about weather when you're doing your landscapes. It doesn't always have to be summer. we have 3 other seasons that are just as much fun to draw as summer is. Well, I think that about wraps up our little drawing for this landscape. But as always, color, I know, I love color. So I did my own version of Gabriele Munter. I took a black oil pastel because it gives me a big fat line. And I did my drawing in pencil first, and then I went in and I copied all of my pencil drawings with the big fat black oil pastel. You can also use a black crayon. And then that way, when I painted, it resisted. The watercolor was resisted by the oil pastel. That way I can get some of my details in. And look, we've got different color greens going on here, right? We've got this kind of green, that kind of green, this kind of green, this kind of green. Think about ways you can mix up your colors. On green, you can add yellow to make a lime green. You can add blue to make a dark green. On the different types of yellows and browns, I know it sounds weird, but if you add a little bit of pink, like magenta, to your yellow, it comes up with this cool sandy color. So experiment with mixing colors. If you have paint, just spend one day not making a painting, just playing with color. What happens if I mix this color with that color? What happens if I add white to all this? And just have a day playing with color. I hope you enjoyed our day with Gabriele Munter and learning about her landscapes. And if you make one of these and you'd like to share it, please send it to us and we can think about putting it in our new gallery of student artwork. Thanks for joining us.